Hello and welcome to the Arn and Eddie Experience. He is Arn Furious. I'm Eddie
Hey.
Sideburns. This one is again, and there's topics to talk about, but it's very interesting. But what I'll do first, Arn, how you doing? You doing all right?
Yeah. So I spent the weekend down in Plymouth, as we were talking about before we came on the air. So I've not seen very much football this weekend, and you were at a softball tournament, so you've seen even less.
Yeah, and to be fair, we'll get onto the subject of why I'm quite glad I didn't watch a lot of football during this weekend. How was this softball tournament you were in? Plymouth? We do have some news to talk about, though. There is still stuff. Before we kind of go over certain things we may have seen and glossed over. Um, Talking about Man United. Obviously, we'll go into it. But there's another topic that's ahead of it. But I think talking about Man United at the moment, probably the best start. Casemiro's in, not played yet.
Not as yet.
Um,
Apparently, there was a delay on his work permit. Last week I basically said that signing Casemiro will make no difference whatsoever, and then they went and beat Liverpool. So he didn't play. But they beat Liverpool, which to be fair, I didn't really see that coming. But at the same time, it did kind of make sense because, like, Man United have in recent years always done really well on the counter attack, and their probably their biggest successes under Ollie Solskjaer were games where they got bullied for the majority of the game. With the other team having a lot of the ball, especially Man City. When they played Man City had a load of the ball, and they just hit them on the counter, and that's how a lot of their players are set up for a counter-attacking football, like Sancho, Rashford, Elanga, boys like that. They're in there to get in behind, cause problems, and that's what they were able to do against Liverpool, especially the Rashford goal, the second one they scored against Liverpool, was pure counter-attacking. So, yeah.
And the Sancho one, Sancho had plenty of time with that. I think also.
He had plenty of time because the defenders didn't commit to the same defending method. That makes sense because Milner threw himself on the floor and Van Dijk just kind of stood there.
Van Dijk had his hands behind his back doing the whole, oh, I can't go to you, but I'm just trying to watch where you're going.
It was not very good defending, was it? And the fact that because he stood and made himself look big, all he's doing is blocking Alisson. So Alisson couldn't see anything. So the ball goes straight past Alisson into the corner of the net. He's got no chance. So that was funny.
And then it finishes with then that goal finishes and ends up having James Milner having a big fight with big shouting off with Virgil van Dijk. Then obviously Liverpool get the goal back, but it's kind of pretty much too low, too late at that point. That Liverpool squad, I think they've replaced the players they needed to replace, but they don't have enough depth. That's kind of the main thing I would say about that Liverpool team right now.
I feel like some of these Liverpool players are getting exposed, and it's been a long time coming. So Trent Alexander-Arnold, we've said it before, not very good defensively.
No.
So he kind of has benefited from solid centre-back play. Well, Van Dijk hasn't turned up yet this season. Fabinho has not been good. And you can't really make up for that by having a good left-back. That doesn't really translate to turning it into a solid defense. So you just have one of them bricks just kind of not quite even, and all of a sudden it's a shambles at the back. And they were lucky because they came off that whipping that they got at Old Trafford, which is hilarious. And they played Bournemouth at home, which was an absolute easy 3-pointer. Bournemouth are the worst team in the league. They're an absolute pushover. You look at the players in that team, and they're not a Premier League team. I'm sorry, they're not. They're a championship team. They're a top half championship team, but they're a championship team. And then I'm reminded, sorry, Eddie, but I'm reminded that opening weekend of the season, they absolutely decimated Aston Villa.
I mean, it's quite easy to decimate Aston Villa at this moment in time. I do want to say a shout out in terms of performances in that Man United Liverpool game to Malacia. He played brilliantly.
Well,
I
that's what
think,
happens when you get a player who actually wants to play there and
yeah,
like respects the manager and wants to do well for him. So.
yeah. I mean, they've signed. I mean, if you look at Bourne, I mean, obviously going from you kind of knew there was going to be some kind of vitriolic, anger from them. After that, so then obviously coming to what's the word? Going to Bournemouth and winning 9-0.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bournemouth were in the
Um,
wrong place at the wrong time there because
yeah.
Liverpool knew they had to have a result. They had
And I
to.
think Scott Parker knows that squad is not good enough.
Yeah.
I
They
mean,
haven't spent any money at all. I think they've come in knowing they're going to get relegated, and they're playing like the long game. I don't really know what the long game is, but I don't know, Watford.
yeah.
Game like you make money every other year, live off them parachute payments.
It makes me. I mean, to be fair, probably if it's me, I mean, look at the goalkeepers they have. They've got Travers, there, and they brought in Neto, proven goalkeeper, being at Barcelona. They brought in Marco Senesi. They've brought in Marcus Tavernier. They've not brought in a lot of players that, again, I think we discussed this when we were doing the beginning bit. We were doing the opening day, well, before the thing.
Yeah, I mean, when we did that, I was incredibly dismissive of what Bournemouth were going to do, and I thought I'd screwed up because when they beat Villa on the opening day, I was like, oh, actually, the teamwork that they had in the Championship has translated into the Premier League, and it might not be as bad for them, but they're clearly the worst of the three teams that have come up,
Yeah,
and they've done nothing to improve that. So
it's a tough spell of 3 games to begin with, other than the first one. Man City, Arsenal, and Liverpool as your 3 games after your opening day is quite a difficult stretch. But yeah, Crystal Palace decided to almost try and give everyone a heart attack by taking a 2-goal lead against Man City, only for
too
Erling
early.
Haaland.
It's too early. If you're going to nobble Man City, you got to hit them late. You got to lull them into a false sense of security, but don't concede, which is quite hard in of itself because they tend to score quite a lot of goals. But then, taking a 2-goal lead in the first half was just asking for trouble, really. It's just like, you've annoyed them now.
Yeah. And the man who proved his his transfer fee, Erling Haaland, with the hat trick.
Well, I said when they signed Haaland, I said he'll get a load of goals. And I've heard a couple of people, like especially pre-season, people saying that he's not going to get the goals that he got when he was at Dortmund. The idea being that Dortmund didn't necessarily have to play against teams that were defending in numbers week in, week out. But the difference is that Man City creates so many chances, and he just has an eye for goal. He just knows where to be in the penalty area, and that really showed against Palace. He found space where there shouldn't be space. But the way you get space as a Man City centre forward is you basically let the defenders do their job on everyone else. So the way they just plough players into the box, you got Cancelo comes bombing up into the penalty area. All the midfielders are up in there, and he gets really crowded at times. And the smart thing sometimes is to just stop and let everyone kind of mingle around in the area there. Or with Haaland, was it the third goal? He basically just stepped away onto the far post there, and everyone was like dragged into the middle. And that's what happens when you play City. They're going to pile numbers into the penalty area, and you can't mark everyone.
Yeah.
You can't when the numbers they put forward.
Yeah, and I mean they're just when they can, they've only kind of slipped up once this season already, and technically it wasn't even a slip up. It was it was a draw with a good Newcastle team that did take them to the limit.
Yeah, I mean they could have lost that game. I think any of the other big clubs, if they're in that position where they were down by 2 goals at Newcastle, and they were getting outplayed as well a little bit, to come back and get a point, kind of shows how good they are. I think Man City is going to win this league by a distance. That's my take on that.
I think it's I think I would agree with you, and I think we both discussed. I think it will be probably Man City in terms of the Man United signing. So Casemiro is in. Anthony is currently in the next probably couple of hours, probably even in tomorrow morning. Signed for
yeah, for
100 million euro.
the here we go. So like he's signed basically. That's the. I've never seen him say here we go and then the transfer doesn't happen. So.
And we've got another one. We've got as of also from Fabrizio that Martin Dubravka from Newcastle will be challenging David De Gea for.
They should just play
for his spot.
De Gea is rotten.
Mm.
Just because they won 2 games doesn't change anything that I said about them the last time we recorded. It doesn't. They still have players who don't belong there. They still have players they need to root out. Just because they've started it doesn't mean it's over. Although they look better just because they haven't been playing Maguire.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, and also there's the big rumours that Napoli are interested in Cristiano Ronaldo, and they may do a swap deal with Ronaldo and cash for Victor Osimhen. Which, I mean, they need a striker. That would be quite a statement of intent. It would also be quite possibly a really expensive transfer window for Manchester United.
It's
in terms of
a very expensive transfer window for Man United. I've
but it'd make it even bigger though. Look at it.
I've jokingly entitled our episode that we've been signed by Man United for £100 million and that we'll be playing for them from now on. Yeah, they've spent a lot of money already, and this whole thing of like they've been saying the Glazers don't spend any money. This is not what they meant when they said the Glazers wouldn't spend any money. The Glazers have had a fantastic amount of money coming in. They have spent money on players before, but the problem is they've just thrown money at the problem. It hasn't been a structured approach at all. It hasn't been a structured approach, and the reason why they're in the trouble that they're in is because they just keep throwing money at the problem, and that's all they've done again.
Yeah.
Joe said, "Great weekend for football."
I'm assuming
Benfica win.
Something. Yeah, I'm gonna say. I'm assuming something happened there. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, if they can get Anthony, well, they're getting Anthony. If they can get Osimhen off the bill,
sorry,
Porto
lost 3-1 to Rio Ave. That's fantastic. Benfica won 3-0 away at Boa Vista. So yeah, it sounds like a good weekend for the Benfica.
If United can get Ronaldo off the bill and get Osimhen instead, that would be a really good signing, I believe, for them. Whether it's going to actually happen or not is another thing, because it's not all said and cut and dry. Obviously, they're 2 different kind of strikers, but it'd be really interesting to see if United do that and just basically completely cut ties with Ronaldo.
Yeah, Sporting Lisbon lost at home as well. So I'm looking at Liga NOS results. Those 2-0 under Chavez. Chavez, probably wrong.
But yeah, I know. Yeah, they're going to throw money at the problem at the moment. Everyone will still want the Glazers gone. There are still people, even after they won against Southampton, saying they want the Glazers out, and don't blame them. But we'll see what needs to happen. They've still got a long way to go. But it seems like this team that Ten Hag has now kind of chosen for these last 2 games, which is the same squad in essence, has worked.
Yeah, because he's dropped Maguire.
Yeah.
That's basically the only thing he's done is he's dropped Maguire, and all of a sudden they're good. I wonder why.
80 million, mate. Leicester made 80 million.
Isn't that kind of player? It's not that he's a bad player. He just doesn't fit into the high line that they want to play because he's slow. He's slow and he likes to head things away. Just put him in any team that has a low block and he'll be fine.
Yeah, I can see that. we'll move on now. We'll talk about showboating.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we talk about Richarlison?
Fair enough. Fire away. You watched the Tottenham. You watched bits of the Tottenham Forest game, so fire away.
Yeah, I basically caught the second half. That was I got back from Plymouth and that was on TV, so I watched it. Forest quite good, incidentally. I thought they were pretty decent. Got hit on the counter by a very tactically savvy Conte performance. But yeah, Richarlison, he comes on late in the second half, try and cause a different kind of problem for the Forest defenders. And he does a couple of keepy uppies out by the wing, just basically controls the ball and it kind of pops up a bit. So he does a couple of keepy uppies and then passes it, goes for the return. I know I really can't remember the player's name, but the player just absolutely scythes him down. And there on commentary, you've got Martin Tyler and Jamie Carragher saying that he deserved it. He shouldn't do that. They blamed him for being kicked.
I mean, you also had.
He said, if you don't like Brazilians to showboat on your British ass, then just get good. I think it's part of it is a British mentality that you're not supposed to do all these tricks and skills when you're winning because it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's like denigrating to the opposition. It's
disrespectful. It's kind of
disrespectful, but I feel like it wasn't. It's just all it is it's a bit of skill, it's a bit of time waste, and he's just doing it in a more creative fashion. He's trying to entertain the fans. He's Brazilian. Like it's fine. The whole concept of it's okay to boot someone if they do little keepy uppies. I mean, Ivan's come out and said if Richarlison was English, they'd ask for him to be protected. If you had Jesse Lingard doing keepy uppies on the wing and the crowd going, oh, and then I don't know, Regulon say comes ploughing straight through him, Martin Tyler would be absolutely baying for a red card.
Yeah,
he would. It's nonsense. So
I mean, even had Diddy Hammond going on Twitter and complaining about it, and then getting the response of Rick Charlson. Even then made an attempt to respond and told him to cry more, which good on him. I said, Richarlison's done this. He did this stuff last season when he was at Everton in certain games. You know, it's not a surprise.
And he's entertaining. I've always liked Richarlison. There is a degree of shithousery to his performing, but isn't that just part of the game?
Yeah.
Him doing keepy uppies. There's no rule that says you can't do keepy uppies when you're winning 2-0 away from home. The rule doesn't exist. Whereas booting him in the shin, it is a foul. So he's won a free kick for his team. The other guys got booked. Possibly could have been sent off because he absolutely scythed him. For me, it's a problem in British football is that you don't see skill moves. You don't see it because when somebody attempts it, they tend to get booted, and then it's like, well, I don't really want to show off my skill again because somebody will kick me in the shin.
I don't know. It's just kind of it's just silly that they're complaining about this and that they're going on about how, when I saw it and you sent me and we discussed that, it was like, right, okay, that's just something that Richarlison has typically done in games before. It's football, he's trying, we have seen other players, showboat there's an entire Soccer AM segment that was about showboating. So it's just get over it. Just realize that, they are going to do this. It's not the end of the world.
It's Martin Tyler and Jamie Carragher.
And Diddy Hammond.
The problem. Sky are the problem. And it happens time and time again when you get something like that scuffle with Conte and Tuchel and you don't like to see this. Yeah, we do. Let them have a fight. I want to see a fist fight on the sidelines. And then when someone throws pyro onto the pitch, they're like, "Oh no, you can't have football."
Listen,
Wankers. Wankers. Especially Martin Tyler. He needs to be like rolled off to the retirement home. Get somebody in there who's not a complete tosser.
I'm surprised he hasn't been given, obviously, things he said, but we can comment on that another time.
I was putting Eddie in a bit of a spot.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, it's fine. Right, moving on.
Moving on.
I mean, the bit says Newcastle being sensible. I think that was last week, but they are sensible.
Last week, yeah.
They've currently been sensible.
Yeah, they signed Alexander Isak.
Yes.
Which I'm not convinced that Isak is worth the money that they spent on him. I think they spent big money on a guy he's all right, you know. I don't think this might be the first time Newcastle have spunked a load of money on somebody, and I didn't really agree with it. I don't think he's worth that much.
When your strike forces or when your striking options are Chris Wood, Joe Linton.
Yeah, they overspent on Chris Wood as well.
Joe Linton, who's technically kind of now in the back, kind of in the midfielder. I think they had Almiron up, and Almiron was pretty good in the game against Man City. Having an out-and-out striker, and you know, Isak scored against Barcelona before he left Sociedad. Yeah, I mean,
I'm not saying he's bad. I just think they've overpaid.
Yeah, but then again, this is the market price. Everyone's going to end up overpaying. I don't think at the moment you're going to see a team, you know, go, okay, you can have this player for this amount.
I think the problem with a lot of Premier League teams, and we're going to get to this in a bit about them hoovering up players from Europe, but just about every league, every level is like Premier League's just kind of hoarding players at the moment. But it's a case of them overpaid, the story of the Prem.
I want to pick up what Forrest, what Ivan said. Yeah, I mean,
finish my sentence. Carry on. It's fine.
Quickly, because I saw it, and we were talking about Forrest anyway quickly before. I just don't think they have anyone. Their strike forces, like Brennan Johnson, could be okay. You know, he's in the Wales squad. Lyle Taylor is nowhere near this level.
No, not at all. Awani's a very good player. He's a real workhorse. He chase everything down, and I think Brennan Johnson can kind of play off him a little bit. I think they've got something going on there. For sure.
But let's be clear, they've spunked a ton of money on Morgan Gibbs-White, and that is quite possibly the most baffling signing.
I don't understand that at all. He's not worth £4 million.
No, and now they're on to their 19th signing, with Renan Lodi coming in from Atletico, and also their 20th signing, who potentially could be Willy Bolly from Wolverhampton. So instead of, you know, improving any of the strike force, they're just improving the defense.
Well, you need to have a solid defense at this level.
You do, but I think if you're coming into the Premier League, I think in this position you need to be bringing in someone who is, you know, a good goal scorer. Someone who, when you look at that lineup, go, okay, he could do, you know, he's going to get a couple of goals from them. Lyle Taylor, not a chance. Brennan Johnson, potentially. You know, when you look at that team, Emmanuel Dennis, they signed Emmanuel Dennis so we could see, you know, had a good time. Yeah, had a good spell on Watford.
Sniffing around all Watford's players because they have players like João Pedro, and well, they probably don't anymore. I don't even know if he's signed for somebody else. But
João Pedro has been linked with Newcastle.
Okay, so they had like an attacking three of like I can't remember the other one is Dennis, Pedro, and the other guy.
Dennis, Pedro, and I'm just finding out for you.
Sarr,
yes, who was linked with
that was
West Ham
up front. So all three of them, Premier League, are all over them, trying to stop Watford from coming up again, because that would be fine by me. And they're all kind of Premier League players. I got there in the end, Ivan. Thanks for that. I got there in the end.
Hey, this is now a Watford podcast. Right, Right. Sorry, you were saying yes. So,
I
it,
was trying to make a point about Alexander Isak a while ago. So
yes.
they've
Go on.
signed him. They've overpaid for him. I understand that he is a quality player, but Premier League teams need to be investing in younger players where they can actually sign a player for very little outlay and actually develop them so they can be good.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they seem to understand this. Instead of developing their own players, they're just waiting for all the other teams to develop their own players. So Real Sociedad signed Isak when he was, kind of raw and inexperienced. Played him a lot in La Liga, gave him the opportunity. He went and scored some goals, and then they've gone, yes, here's £60 million. We'll have him, thank you. Instead of spending 5 million on a player with a lot of potential and going developing from.
I mean, he's had one good season at Sociedad, and that was when he scored. That was 2020, 2021, where he scored 17 goals in the league.
Like I say, I don't think he's great. Like for the money that they've spent on him, I don't think he's worth that.
I remember putting him in the fantasy squad for the UEFA 2020 Euros, and he wasn't great there at all. But then again, that Sweden side was not that great at all.
I mean, Kulusevski.
Other than Kulusevski.
Yeah.
But they did end up beating. I think they ended up getting to the quarters, didn't they? But then they were absolutely.
I don't remember because it happened longer ago than a week. So.
But yeah. So I mean, you are right. I like Isak as a player. I think he will do quite well. But yeah, as we were kind of going on to talk about
15 million for him, I'd be like, oh, that's a great signing. That is, but 60. Was it 65? That's way too much.
Yeah, and if we talk about it, as we were going to mention, there's been an influx of foreign signings. You've got Lucas Paqueta, Mikko Damsgaard, Amadou Onana, João Pahina, to Fulham, Haaland to City, Nunes to Liverpool, Casemiro to Man United, obviously Martinez and Antony, Awonyi, Niakate, Lodi to Forest, Sekou Mara to Southampton, and more of the Portuguese international squad to Wolverhampton Wanderers, Portugal. So there's a lot there.
My point that I was trying to make when I listed all those into the Google doc that Eddie's reading now is that the Premier League seems to have this ridiculous lure for players, and I don't think it's all purely like, I want to play in the Premier League because it's the best league in the world. People are coming here for the money, and it worries me that players are just going to get lost in the mix here. It's ultimately just going to hurt the development of younger players who are already in these squads. Like, how would you feel if you're let's use an example of somebody who I know what I'm talking about because it's an Everton player, Ellis Sims. So Ellis Sims, really talented young forward, pretty close to the first team. I thought he was going to get a shot this season because Everton hadn't spent any money on forwards until they bought Neil Maupay. So I thought he was going to get a shot. I thought he'd be back up for DCL, but like he'd play some games, get a chance, and they've loaned him out again. And to me, that just makes no sense. Like, he is a good player, so like he's enjoying himself probably at Sunderland, scored a couple of goals in his debut, but where's the sense in this? Like, he's only going to develop properly if he plays Premier League games. And it seems like all the Premier League teams are the same. They're all scared to play players because there's so much at stake in every single game. There's so much money involved in it that they have to buy a proven player to play in this position. But it's like Man United being scared to play like Henderson because they weren't sure. Like, they weren't 100% sure that he was like the best goalkeeper they could have. So they kept playing De Gea, even though De Gea was rotten. And now they've had to go and buy another goalkeeper because they couldn't hold on to the second one because they weren't playing him. They weren't giving him a chance because they were scared. And they're all like it. Every single team is like it in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, young talent from young English talent. Anthony Gordon's been offered Anthony Gordon's apparently going to Chelsea with
I don't think it is. It's like they've rejected like 50 million, or was it 50, 55? I don't think Chelsea are going to pay any more than that. But
Chelsea have gone back in. Chelsea have gone back in offering money and Broha and Conor Gallagher.
I mean, I would take that like that. If they came in giving me 2 players and 50 million, I'd be like, yes. Do you want me to drive him to London? I mean, I like Anthony Gordon, but he's not that good.
He's not going to play though. When he goes to City, if he goes to Chelsea, he's going to be a bench player that will come on the odd occasion.
Like Ross Barkley was arguably Everton's best player. Maybe not, but like he was up there. Sold him to Chelsea. He just sat on Chelsea's bench for however long he's been there, and now they've released him on a free.
And now he's going to Rangers or Celtic.
What a waste of time that was. And this just reinforces my issue here, is that the constant need for somebody needs to be ready now. You have to sign them now, and they've got to play now and now, and everything's now. There's no like, all right, where do we want to be in 12 months? There's no forward planning from any of these teams. It's embarrassing.
I can't argue with you. I think
to be fair, I think Brighton does it.
Yeah, I mean, look at the likes of
the league for signing players, building them up and selling them on, and just playing reasonably sensible money ball. But even teams like Brentford are trying to get established players in.
Also, just 6 hours ago, Wolves have agreed to sign Sasa Kalajic from Stuttgart.
Yeah.
So there you go.
6'7", 6'8".
Oh, he's a big he's a big target man boy. So he'll be having fun. Paqueta to West Ham. That is
West Ham have had money to burn this summer. They got this big pile of cash, and they're like, "What do we spend this on?" David Moyes has said that they've gone in for so many players. They've had bids knocked back for just about everyone they've tried to get a bite with, and to get Lucas Paqueta, I think he's a ridiculously good player. Is it going to work? Like he's going. The trouble is, like, because all the teams are doing the same thing. They're all reinforcing and they're all spend. It's just reinforcing the status quo, surely. Like none of these teams are going to get any of an advantage over each other because they're all spending a load of money. It's not like Man City spent a ton of money on players, so everyone else is left behind. They've spent money. Everyone else has spent money.
I think like the signings they've made though, like Scamacca, helping will take, as I think even Moyes kind of said, will take the burden off of Mikel Antonio. Given Antonio has been kind of their main striker for, when was the last time the West Ham had? I know, I can see it and I appreciate it. When was the last time that the West Ham kind of signed a main striker? Maybe Haller, and then he's obviously left.
Yeah, they made a mess of that, didn't they?
Yeah, now he's at Dortmund, obviously undergoing treatment still, and obviously wish him all the best in terms of that.
I don't understand why it went wrong there, but then I don't understand why they bought him in the first place, because they way overpaid for him. But
that's the thing. These clubs, if a big club comes in for one of your players.
Oh, hang on, we got Schwaz in the chat, so we should probably ask him how he feels about Darwin Núñez and his move to Liverpool. We'll see if we get it.
He's had a good start so far with a nice headbutt, already fallen victim to the mind games. So
I
while
feel
we're
like
waiting,
Liverpool massively overpaid for him. Like every Premier League team massively is overpaying for all of the players that they're buying.
we will quickly just while we're waiting for a response. Um, I've got here the next item, which is Steven Gerrard is shit.
Yeah, good deal.
Villa,
And
they're
that's
not.
the problem. The problem with the Premier League team, sorry for carrying on ranting, and we're supposed to be moving on to Villa, is the problem is that they don't see selling a player as good business.
Mhm.
None of them do. None of them look at a player and go like, "Oh, if we sell him, we reduce our wage bill and we get somebody off the books." And the fans are like, "Oh God, sell players." Selling players is part of the game.
I
It's
mean, you want to see
improve
you
by selling
you want
players.
you want to talk about a moment where fans would actually be quite happy with getting someone off the books. We just go back to the team we were talking about at the beginning of the show. If United get Ronaldo off the books, I think a ton of their fans will be extremely happy with that. But yes, he'll always keep dragging on the Prem. Like I will always keep dragging on a certain Catalonia team. Um, Aston Villa
Aston
doing
Villa are
not
not
that
a
well.
Catalonian team.
No,
What
um,
nonsense is
I
this?
mean, I'm not mentioning them. I refuse to give them any more of my time and breath. Although there's a great documentary on Netflix you can go watch about Luis Figo's transfer. But yes, Steven Gerrard has had a poor start to the season. Losing to Bournemouth on the opening day. It's they're currently 15th. They did end up picking up points, but that was really only against Everton, and any team can pick up points against Everton.
Hey, so
Listen,
I'd like to comment on the Everton game. So the Everton game, Everton came in with no forward players, a brand new defence, and they played really well towards the end of the game. Villa could have lost that by 3 goals. And even though the Villa had dominated the game for 80 minutes, they got absolutely pantsed in the last 10 minutes because Everton actually brought a striker on. If Everton had started the game with a striker, if they actually had one on the books, then I think Villa would have lost.
Yeah.
And I think Villa have been rotten in every game they've played this season, which is why they've only got 3 points. And they've only got 3 points because of that Everton situation. And they lost to Bournemouth, who are the worst team in the league.
Opening day lost to Bournemouth, lost to Crystal Palace, and lost to West Ham.
Oh, they were losing in the Carabao for a while as well, which they eventually turned it around and won like 4. But yeah,
they've not. I mean, Diego Carlos being injured is a bit of a blow, but some of their players have just don't know. They've just not really, they've just not really clicked at certain points. They've just not kind of got into gear yet.
So my personal feeling is that it's the manager, and I'm not just saying that because it's Steven Gerrard and I don't like him. I'm saying that because Gerrard was in an easy job at Rangers. He was in a two horse race that he won because the other horse basically exploded. So
very much.
So you have a dead horse that you've quite comfortably beaten, and then when Celtic do something about it and actually bring in like a decent manager in Ange Postecoglou, he runs off down to England to get away from it, so he doesn't get exposed as a fraud, which he would have done this season. And now he's gone to Villa, and he has been exposed because he's gone into a team that needed a little bit of guidance, and he's just spent like a load of money.
I think not being able to take his full coaching staff, so not taking Michael Beale,
Bad.
not being able to take that kind of stuff. Because yes, if we talk about the Rangers
Yeah, so
ending the
I kind of made a bit of a point there about recruitment. But Ings, when they bought him, Ings was a good signing when they signed him because they were like they needed a striker. They got one, Premier League quality. They didn't know his legs had gone. Like I feel like that didn't really happen until the season started. Buendia and Leon Bailey were both great signings, I thought, at the time. It's just they haven't really worked out, but they haven't worked out because they're not playing a formation that benefits them in any way. So.
And Bailey was very much hyped during the preseason as being, extremely one to watch for. And now there's rumours that Leon Bailey's on his way out, and Ajax are interested in signing him.
I'm sure he'll do great there as well.
One of the bright sparks of, even if it's not too much, of the Steven Gerrard Aston Villa era was convincing Coutinho to come over. I think Coutinho wouldn't have come to Villa if Gerrard wasn't the manager. Yeah. If they get rid of
how much they're paying him.
Oh yeah, I mean, if Gerrard, they've got to kind of stick with Gerrard now for at least a little bit longer. But
I don't know how much longer do you stick with him until they're in the Championship?
I mean, I'm going to quickly talk about what Arn was referring to. Yeah, he'd won. I think Gerrard had won one game against Ange Postecoglou's Celtic. And then obviously got offered the Aston Villa job, and then Rangers went to pot kind of after that, and Celtic had just had, Ange's recruitment drive at that point. And we'll get onto it in a moment where I'll probably end up crying about what we're going to talk about. But the players that he's brought in are quality players. So yeah, Gerrard winning the title was a bit of a fluke, but it was also a case of, as you said, the other horse was currently, on its arse, but he had a team there that was a good squad. Regardless, I'm not taking anything away from that Rangers side. They performed above all expectations. I think personally, they do need to give Gerrard a little bit of time, but I don't think they need to give him too much. He does need to try.
Sorry, Eddie. I was looking at the teams that have started the season poorly, and I'm not too worried about West Ham. I think they'll get out of that. Everton, I'd worry about. I think Wolves will be okay. Leicester, I said pre-season we're going to be in trouble, but I think I would add Villa to that list of clubs that's going to be in trouble.
I think the teams that are 13th and below at the moment, other than West Ham, maybe replace them with Fulham potentially, because Fulham you still never know with them.
I think Wolves will be okay. Wolves will be fine.
Yeah, I think and Southampton may have a little bit of an up and down bit, but yeah. We were talking about Everton. We might, it's difficult. Obviously, we know about that. We might as well get the elephant. We might as well talk about the elephant in the room. Thank God I did not watch football on Sunday. Dundee United have conceded quite a number of goals since losing 7-0 to AZ Alkmaar.
Where's it all gone wrong, Eddie? Because we talked about them a little bit at the start of the season. I didn't get the chance to ask you if you thought like Jack Ross was a good person to lead them forwards. Kind of talked about it. I guess off air, but they look all right. They look set, and they beat AZ Alkmaar in the home leg.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, it's just been an absolute cavalcade of shit. They lost to Livingston like right after that Alkmaar game. I saw a bit of that match. I thought they were unlucky, but then they got absolutely spanked by Alkmaar. Lost to Hearts, lost at home to St Mirren, and then yesterday shipped 9 goals against Celtic.
Since that AZ Alkmaar game, the 1-0 one, we have shipped in 24 goals and have only scored 1. This team was great defensively, but it's worrying. Last year we were quite, with Tam Courts, we were quite successful at being a defensively strong team. Now it just seems like we've kind of given up on that, and that's very worrying because, and people were laughing at us, and you know what, it's it is what it is. It's embarrassing. The club haven't made any kind of statement given the 9-0 loss. Celtic are a superior side in terms of the quality of players they can bring on and the quality of players that they have, but it's still no excuse for shipping in 9 goals. I mean, I was checking my Twitter and I saw people were leaving midway through because obviously who wants to sit and watch your team get absolutely annihilated 9-0? This is going to be a real struggle. There's clearly still some gaps we need to fix. The goalkeeping situation is massively worrying at the moment. It's going to be a really tough season. I thought Jack Ross had something about him that potentially, he was saying all the right words and stuff like that. But it's now come to a point where, we've lost. We shouldn't have lost to St Mirren at home. That was one where everyone was expecting a result. Everyone was like, right, we've been knocked out of Europe.
And 3-0 as well. It wasn't close.
Yeah, we've been knocked out of Europe. We've lost to Hearts 4-1, who are quite a strong side and have spent quite a money. Spent quite a lot of money, sorry. To then lose at home 3-0 to St Mirren is just ridiculous. So we'll see what happens. I'm not confident. We've got Livingston in the Scottish League Cup coming up. So we'll see what happens. But I just want to quickly say, because I see Giles saying it in the chat, Kyogo and Jota. That squad is terrifying for any team that's in the Premier League who's not Rangers.
We're going to come around to the Champions League draw, so we'll talk about the group that they're in. We should probably do that quite soon. We're just going to address We're just going to address the questions that we've got in the chat there. So yeah.
It's Kyogo and Jota, and I'm sorry, it's just not. I'm going to take a lot to dissuade me otherwise.
Galaxy Eagles, West Ham, money well spent, or is the market going a bit crazy? It's kind of both. They've overpaid. I mean, everyone's overpaid this summer. It's a world gone mad. But yeah, Paqueta is a good signing. Is he worth that much money? Probably not.
No, I think the market is going a little bit crazy. Jan Sommer was linked with Man United. I would have been interested to see what would happen there, but he is a great goalkeeper, no doubt about that.
They were talking about signing him to provide competition for De Gea, and I'm like, if you sign him, there's no point keeping De Gea. See, no. Jan Sommer is a significantly better goalkeeper in every respect than David De Gea.
Yeah, it's I would agree with that. Yeah,
19 games against Bayern. It's a Bundesliga record.
Ivan there. Skamaka, they kind of maybe overpaid for. I've gone in my fantasy team in a draft, and I kind of hope that he will come good soon. Because again, he'll take the burden off of Antonio. But yeah,
I don't think Sassuolo were particularly upset about him leaving. For 35
no, they were probably extremely happy about getting that.
It's a good sale.
Right. Okay.
Let's
get it. So the Champions League and the Europa League have been drawn. We'll just talk about the clubs from the UK that have been, and then obviously we'll look on the occasion mention if we have friends who are in the room. So let me just have a wee look. So Group A is Ajax, Liverpool, Napoli, and Rangers. I reckon, me personally, I think that goes Liverpool, Napoli, Ajax, and I think Rangers finish 4th. That's my personal opinion, but we'll hear from Arn in just a minute once he's had a look at it.
I'm trying to find the actual group here. Groups.
Just go to. I'll send you it in the private chat.
It seems like every place I go, I get like the.
It says Group F, but if you open up, it will show you the full thing.
Of course, Wikipedia.
So yeah, Group A is Ajax, Liverpool, Napoli, and Rangers.
Let's just pop that in there so we can see it. There we go.
So let's go all the way up to Group B.
There we go.
Okay, so I reckon that finishes Liverpool at 1st, Napoli 2nd, Ajax 3rd, and I think Rangers are 4th.
I think that's fair. I mean, Ajax, it's a rebuilding season. They've sold players. I'm surprised Rangers got into the groups.
PSV were not that great. And in the second leg, PSV were great.
PSV. I thought they were going to lose before that, but
I mean, if you look at the signings that they've made, so Ajax have signed Berwin, Windal, Calvin Bassey from Rangers, Brian Brobbey from Leipzig. I'm not pronouncing the Portuguese name, but it's Francesco Conchal from Porto. I'm sure I'll be butchered in the comments there. But yeah, they've signed. They've started off the league. They're 4 games, 4 wins. I think potentially, yes, they lost the Johan Cruyff Shield to PSV. But I think they've got a good enough squad. Rangers may put up a challenge. I just don't think that squad. Because obviously Rangers, Ibrox, European nights.
It will be fun to watch Rangers versus Liverpool, and
yes,
I legitimately hope Rangers beat Liverpool at Ibrox. Even though I don't like Rangers, I would quite happily cheer them on against Liverpool because it's Liverpool.
Yeah. So I think that's how that goes. Napoli, depending on what happens, we might change mind. Atletico Bayer, Porto, Bruges.
I don't think Atletico Madrid are very good, but they just seem to keep getting through these.
Let's be honest, Simeone's a cunt, but he gets his team is cunty, and they just end up doing something.
I mean, you're not wrong. I was giving you permission to.
Thank you. And then Tavernier hits the penalty cold-blooded into top bins in the 90-minute. Rangers bring down the lead to
4-1.
Oh,
brilliant.
Galaxy Giggle says, "Lol, no." I'm kind of curious as to what he's saying there. But yeah, I mean, it's Atletico. They end up finding a way.
I mean, they will go through, won't they? I'd personally like to see Club Bruges go through because they're not Porto.
Anyone but Porto. He's purpose. I don't know. Is that laughing emoji? Or is that someone? I don't know. Right, come on, Galaxy Giggles, talk to us.
I don't know what that is.
Right, let's move to Group C, which is quite possibly
death. I'll tell you, if I was Victoria Plitzen, I would be absolutely overjoyed with that draw because that is 3 guaranteed sellouts of their stadium. They can charge whatever they want. They're going to be absolutely packed full of rabid Czechs, just having a great time watching the football, and hopefully they stick it to one of them.
I think with this one, I'll go Bayern first, Inter second, Barca third.
Bayern are basically just robots, aren't they? So I imagine they'll go through there. But yeah, it is. I think it's going to be close between Inter and Barcelona. It's going to be interesting to see squeaks through there.
I mean, you just got to look at how they performed last season. They were dreadful. They were very dreadful. I feel, but yeah, I think it's good for
Fair point.
Pleasant. I think definitely. I mean, the money that they get in anyway, and the people who will travel will help.
Yeah,
So,
I mean they'll get TV money and stuff as well because they're just for having those games on.
Yeah, but I think I wouldn't be
It's
surprised
more of a
if we
money
see.
spinner than if they were in there with like somebody who's maybe not such a big draw. But I understand what you're saying there, Phil.
A prediction I'm gonna make is I would not be surprised if I see Pliskin get a win or a draw out of this. I don't know. I have a feeling one of these teams may just easily slip up.
Must admit, I don't know much about them. But then I didn't know much about Sheriff until they beat Real Madrid. So.
Yeah. Let's go to Group D, which is Frankfurt, Spurs, Sporting, Marseille. I think
definitely want
Spurs...
Frankfurt to win, and Marseille. I would like to see Marseille go through.
Okay.
What will probably happen is that Spurs and Sporting will go through, but
I'll go Tottenham, Frankfurt, Marseille in third, and Sporting in fourth. I'm risking it. When I'm wrong and these all come back to bite me, I'll happily laugh. But
that's all right. We're not making any notes. It's fine. You can say whatever you want.
That's good.
I think Dinamo Zagreb is clearly the winner of Group
A. Chelsea, Milan.
It'll be a hard place to go. It's not going to happen. They've played a very poor league.
It's Chelsea, Milan. Technically, the way that it's on that screen, it will be like that, but potentially with a mix of Milan, Chelsea, and Salzburg in the top 3 positions. So yeah, I'd like to see, and I think De Ketelaere, he was rumored to be coming over to England at some point, so
he probably will be. He probably will this time for an enormous amount of money.
So yeah, that's how that's going to be. Group F is
I hope Real Madrid lose to Shakhtar Donetsk. I think that would be very funny.
I think Madrid win the group. Leipzig come second. Celtic come third, and Donetsk come fourth. I do, however, expect Madrid to easily dispatch of Celtic. Just think that's how it's going to be.
It's going to be fun. There are going to be some fun European nights there for the 2 Glasgow nights. Yeah. They'll have some fun night. I think Rangers Liverpool will be a fun one, but also Celtic against Real Madrid will be a fun one for the Glaswegians. I think they'll enjoy that.
Very much so. And I think Leipzig are Leipzig. They do have a good squad because all they need to do is just call up Salzburg and go, who have you got available? Benjamin Sesko. Well, we'll take him. Don't worry about that at all. Just change the badge a little bit.
Okay. Group G.
Europa League consistent winners Sevilla, Man City, Borussia Dortmund, and Copenhagen.
Will Sevilla deliberately finish third so they can get into the Europa League? Is that the play here?
Probably. You could always put there was a couple of seasons where you could always put a bet on Sevilla winning the Europa League. That's for sure.
It'd be worth putting a flutter on them this season because it's a tricky group.
Yeah. Ivan, good point as well. Just going back to the league, the thing before, big night for Jota and Kyogo because I think Celtic in the previous European games have maybe not had a full strength squad. But it's going to be a very interesting experience for them. Man City, I think, qualify here. Dortmund didn't qualify.
Well, Man City like buying a robot, so they play very robotic football. So.
And last but certainly not least, if he's still here, Group H. Oh.
I mean,
well.
like Benfica haven't got a chance. I know that's what they're laughing at. But I think they've got a shot at beating Juventus. I don't think they've got a shot at beating PSG. I think PSG might come unstuck a little bit later on. But
I mean,
the thing with PSG is this summer they've been quite sensible. So apart from the Mbappe contract,
this year, Kylian Mbappe's PSG have been quite sensible because they've just went up to Kylian and went, "What do you want us to do?"
Yeah, so the way that they've replaced the manager, they've replaced the manager with a better one who understands French football, and they've brought players in who will actually play for the team and not for themselves. And they've improved the squad. So I think they actually might have a shot at it this year. I don't think they'll win it, but I think they'll have a shot. But yeah, that group, I think Benfica's best chance is to do Juventus.
It's a difficult, I think that Juve team does have some good quality in it that they've signed. Dusan Vlahovic being there, Chiesa's there, obviously Pogba's back.
So Joe's saying the same thing.
Yeah, I think I don't get me wrong. Benfica probably do have quite a good chance. Obviously, they're in the Champions League for a reason. It's going to be very difficult, but yeah, I do agree with you. I think it could be possible. I just think it's going to be really tough. I mean, the good news is Mbappe is going to take a day off every time that they play Maccabi Haifa. He'll just sit back and go, right, go win for me. So yeah.
Yes, coach.
Coach / player / everything.
See what the last round of fixtures are.
Yeah, Giles right there as well. They've beaten bare Juventus teams. I can imagine that.
I think. Sorry, I was aiming for the 25th of October. Obviously, it's a truncated campaign this year because they've got to get the group stages done before the World Cup, the World Cup. So I think this game here, Benfica on the 25th of October. I think Benfica wins that, then they've got Maccabi Haifa last game. I think that could be the one because Juventus going into PSG last day.
It's going to be a very, very difficult challenge. Right, let's almost finish up with the last bit. I'm just going to quickly mention it, and then we're going to quickly wrap up this show. Ferrari are a stupid bunch of people. Yeah, they need to get their act together. Max, as you've put in the spreadsheet, Max Verstappen, 2-time world Formula One champion. It again seems like. I mean, I did enjoy checking my phone and seeing that Lewis Hamilton got into an incident with Fernando.
I watched that. I watched that in the car. I wasn't driving, by the way, but I watched it in the car on the way home from Plymouth, and never watch motor racing while you're in a car because you get the sense of movement to go with the terrifying, absolutely terrifying.
Daniel Ricciardo is basically leaving. Well, he's leaving McLaren. The Oscar Piastri situation is quite hilarious. But yeah, this is probably Verstappen's to lose at the moment, I'd say.
Yeah, with the race this past weekend, I talked about it with a guy at work who watches a lot of Formula One, and I said to him, "Look, Verstappen's going to win. He's going to win this race." And they're like, "Oh, not so sure. He's way back on he's going to win." The way it was set up, it's like it felt like it was written. It's like, oh, this can be the race where Verstappen plows through the field and wins, as opposed to the race where he, just waits for Ferrari to crash. or the engine to explode. He'll clinch it at Suzuka.
Yeah. Great moment where Fernando Alonso gave Hamilton the middle finger, like everyone should.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I don't dislike Lewis Hamilton. He's just...
No, it's the other one I dislike more than anyone else. And the day he wins a Formula One race is the day I quietly cry in the corner. Because nobody should ever like George Russell. But we move on. Right. We will be back some point next week. Oh
yeah, we need to talk about that afterwards. But
we'll talk about it off air.
I have some issues next weekend because we're doing overnight work, so like I'm not actually going to be here of an evening at all. So we'll have a chat. We'll see what we can come up with, but we'll be here at some point next week.
And the podcast never came back. Anyway, if you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe down below. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Zhao. Thank you, Domi. Thank you, Galaxy Giggles. Everyone for joining in and listening. We appreciate you. We will speak to you next time. Take care and subscribe. Bye bye.